Assalamu alaikum, my name is Taimur Sikandar and welcome back to the next part of the CityGuide application. Today in this tutorial we are going to perform the validations in Android Studio. So before getting started, I just want to make a request to you all that please watch the complete tutorial from start to end, because I already created a validation tutorial previously for the Bullsrent application, and there are some people who skipped the video and they again asking about something that is already defined in the video. So let's get started. Let's run the application. I have added all the validations for the sign up. As you can see, we have 3 sign up activities. So for the first one, when the user is going to click the next button, he is going to ask enter or to fulfill all the data in the fields, and then username. Now you can see I have added a space at the end and try to go for the next field and enter. You can see there is no error and the space has already removed, but after the space, if I am going to write something, then click on the next, you can see the error which is saying no white spaces are allowed. So we are going to deal with that. Then we have email validation. Let's say we are not going to add @ and click next, which is showing invalid email. We need to define proper email. Click next. Then again remove the white spaces as well, and then in the password field, currently you can see it is saying the field cannot be empty, and after adding some password we are inside this second screen of the sign up, and in here I have added a check for the age, that user should have at least 14 years of age to create the account on our application. So let's say I am going to click next, and it is saying you are not eligible to apply because anyone who is born in 2012 is not going to be valid for our application. So let's make it some small values. Let's say 2001. Then it's saying please select gender. Select the gender, click next. After everything, we are sending basically data or passing data from each activity to the next activity, and in here this is basically just a simple check, which is again not going to allow white spaces in between, and if there is any white space at the end, it is simply going to redirect to the next screen. So this is what we are going to create in this tutorial. So without wasting time, let's get started. Open the Android Studio project, and currently I am inside our CityGuide application, and we are going to perform the validations on our sign up screen. So the first thing, you need to assign IDs to each field, and I have already assigned IDs. As I have assigned IDs to text input layout, so in the Java file I am going to call the variables or to create the variables for the hooks. They will again going to be text input layout type. So assign IDs to each of them. If you assign ID over there inside this text input edit text, then inside the Java you have to create variable with the name text input edit text. So not a big deal. You can assign IDs to both of them. After assigning IDs, inside this button we want to perform the validation when user click on this next button. So inside I have created an onClick method and call this function call next sign up screen. So in the previous tutorial we were just calling the next screen by adding some animations in it. So now we want to first validate and then send this 4 fields data to next activity along with the validation. Let's jump back to this file over here, which is this function call next sign up screen. So as I told you, we were just adding some animation and starting this activity over here. So for now, let's close it. The first thing you need to do is you need to declare the variables. As I told you, this is the text input layout, and we have 4 variables, and then we have created 4 hooks as well. So now inside, before going to call anything inside this function, we need to create some private, and they are going to return some true and false. So they will have a return type boolean, validate full name, and that's it. Now inside this function, let's create a string, because we need to get value of the user full name. String value is equal to full name. So this is basically this full name dot get text. So this is not going to be get text, as we are using the material design and we have assigned the ID to layout. So we need to define get edit text, then we need to define get text dot toString, and make sure to add trim at the end of string, because we do not want to store any spaces to our database. Okay, after this value we want to make sure that if value dot is empty. So if the value is empty, we just want to set the error to this field, which is full name dot set error. So this set error is basically a built-in function for the edit text fields. So the error is going to be field cannot be empty. You can modify these errors as per your own requirements, and we need to return false as this is an error. And in the else statement we need to return true, and we first need to remove this error, full name dot set error. If you pass null in it, then it will automatically remove this error, but the error for the material design is going to take some space below each field. So to remove that field, we will write full name dot set error enabled and pass false. So this will basically remove that space extra as well. And then as we need to return, and this time it is going to be true, because this else will be executed when the field is not empty. User has written something, press Alt Control L to align the code. So that's it for the full name. We do not have to add any other validations. So let's just copy it and paste it, change its name to username. Now inside this username we need to make sure that username should not be empty, and also there should not be any white space or any space between the username. So first let's change it to username to get its value, and copy and paste it over here as well. Okay, to add a check for the white spaces, we need to create a string check spaces is equal to. So you just have to paste this code. You can get the code, link is in the description. This means you can write any capital A to small z, any alphabet. This means from capital to small, and then you can, the W means white spaces. So if you do not add any limitation, so this is basically a limitation in the curly braces. If you do not add any limitation, it is going to validate only first white space, and then it is not going to check anything else. So you should have to define the spaces. So make sure it is 1 at the start and limits to 20, because we are going to limit 20 characters for the username, and we are going to ask the user that username is going to be too big, so 20 characters are fair enough. So let's add else if statement value dot length is greater than 20. If the value of the username is going to be greater than 20, then we are going to again set error. So let's just copy it and again we are going to return false here, and the error is going to be too large or too big. Okay, the next thing for the white spaces is again add else if, and inside you need to add value dot matches and pass check spaces in it. So we need to add a not sign. So if this value is not going to match with this method defined over here, then we should generate some error. So again paste it, username dot, the error is going to be no white spaces are allowed, and then again return false. And if these three are not the cases, then we are going to go for the else, and it is going to return true. So press Alt Control L to align the code. Simply copy it again, close it, and paste it one more time. Change the username to email, and for the email we need to change, first let's change their names. Let's change it over here because we do not have any length validation for the email. Close it and change it over here. So for the email, let's change this check space to, and again I will share this code in the description on our website. So this is going to be check email, copy and paste, change this message to invalid email, and again it is going to return false. Okay, that's it for the email. Now the last thing is going to be copy and paste, and it is going to be for the password, and change the variables. Password cannot be empty, and we need to add some password check over there. So we are going to change this check password and simply just cut it and paste these lines. And in my previous videos I have added these comments for the validation, and so if you need to add some checks as defined over here, if you do not need any letter, you can comment it. If you need it, just uncomment it. So it depends on your own requirements. So we need to change it to check password. Let's suppose password should contain 4 characters. So that's it for these functions. After creating these functions, inside the function which is going to be called when user presses the next button. So when user presses the next button, we are not just going to call the next activity, but before that we're going to make sure to perform all the validations. So the first one is validate full name. So it is going to return true. If will be executed by default when it is going to return true, but we want to execute this if when there is false statement return. So when you add the exclamation mark, then it will going to add false here, then the if will be executed. Or the single or means it is going to execute all the functions defined inside this if one after another. So if we add 2 ors, that means either this one or the second one. So we are not going to do this. We're going to make sure that all functions should be executed. So after we have a username, we need to validate email and validate password. So now inside this if, they are going to, if any one of them going to return false, this if will be executed and we will simply return. In other case, if there is a success story, if they all return true, then it is going to not gonna return anything, and we can simply jump to our next screen. So before moving to the next screen, we want to pass our data of these all 4 fields to the next screen as well. So for that, okay, inside this second file you can see we have a gender over there, and we have a date or the calendar you can say. So how we can get this data and how we can validate it, so let's go back to the split screen. So as you can see, this is a radio group, and inside this radio group we have radio buttons. So I have initialized IDs to radio group. Radio group is simply a radio group, and then we have IDs, male, female and others inside the radio buttons, 3 buttons with 3 IDs. And then for this date picker we have the ID age underscore picker. Right after initializing the IDs, let's go back to the sign up, and in here you need to define the radio group first, which is simply a radio group. Then I have declared only one radio button. As you can see, we have 3 radio buttons, but I have created only one radio button variable, and you guys can know in a minute. So then we have a date picker with the variable simply a date picker. Now inside the hooks, make sure you should add a hook of the variable which is a radio group, not to this radio button. And then we have a date picker hook as well. So we have 2 hooks. Again, inside this button, a user is going to click on this button. On the on click, this function is going to be called, which is call third sign up screen. So it is over here, call third sign up screen, and again it is going to add animations and calling the next activity. So before moving to perform anything, let's again create private boolean validate gender. And now inside this validate gender, we need to first get the values. So for the gender, we just need to check one single thing, if some radio button is clicked or not, or the checked or not. So for that we are going to write simple if radio group dot get checked radio button ID. So this is going to be get the single ID of the radio button. If it is going to be equal to -1, so this means the -1 means none of the radio button has been selected. So if it is going to be -1, then we are going to return false. And again, instead of showing the error, this time we are going to create a toast. Please select gender, right? And else we are going to return true. Press Alt Control L to align the code. So validate gender is just going to contain this. If there is something inside the radio button, so it is going to return true. Okay, now that's it for the validate gender. Validate age function. Okay, inside this validate age function, what we are going to do is we basically want to make sure that the user should have minimum 10 years of age, or let's suppose any limit you want to add. So for that, we need to first create the current year, then we need to get the year entered by the user, and then we need to get some age difference. So int current year is equal to calendar dot get instance. You should have to create the instance first with the calendar, otherwise you cannot do it. Then I need to get, and inside these brackets write calendar dot year with the capital year and add semicolon. So we have a current year inside this. Now the next thing we need, int user age is equal to, user age is we have the user age inside the date picker. So we will write date picker dot get year. So this is going to return the year entered by the user. Now we need to have int is age valid is equal to current year, which is going to be maximum, so it should not return minus or the negative value. So make sure the current year is at the top, at the first, current year minus user age, and that's it. This is going to return some value. And now we are just going to create if is age valid is less than, let's suppose 14 years, then we want to return false, and we want to let's show a toast message, and you are not eligible to apply, let's say this message, and in the else let's return true. Press Alt Control L to align the code. Okay, now we have validate gender and validate age factors, and now to call these functions, let's go inside the function which will be called when user click on that next button. So we are going to follow the same procedure. If validate, the first one is gender, or validate age, and we have to add not signs, so we get false in them each time. And if we receive false by even from one of the function, then we will simply return it. We are not going to call the next activity. So we can get the value of the radio group. So you can see at the top we have a radio button which is saying a selected age. So inside here we will create a hook, selected age is equal to find view by ID. We have 3 buttons, so we don't know which button is going to be called, so we will use radio group dot get checked radio button ID, the first one, and this is going to return the ID of the selected radio button. So by that way we are going to create the hook of that selected radio button. Simply close it. Now we have created the hook. So the next one is the very simple selected age dot get text. So by doing this we can easily get the text of the user, or sorry, not the age, sorry, this is basically selected gender. Copy and paste it. Let's create a string which is going to be gender and local strings with the underscores at the start, dot to string. Okay, we have gender. Now we need to get the date. Int day is equal to date picker dot get day of the month. This is going to return the day. Then we have month, and then we have year. Change it to get month and to get year. Now we can combine them by this way. String date is equal to day plus backslash or this sign, it depends. Then we have month, add a plus sign, then month, then again a backslash, then plus, then we have year, and that's it. Now we have date inside the string, so we have a gender and we have our date. So we are going to pass this gender and date in the same way as we have passed our data from this sign up. By this way we are going to perform the validations. Thank you for watching. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe it, and if you learn something new, please like the video. Again, thank you for watching. Take care. Allah Hafiz.